Okay, in this video, what we're going to do is introduce you guys to ATI's RenderMonkey. This is the application, as mentioned in the last video, we'll be using to write our shaders.
That's right.
It's a very cool application, and the idea of this video is to get you guys comfortable with the layout of the user interface.
Yep.
Not to teach you really how to write anything. We'll do that in the next video.
Not yet, that's right.
So, first of all, we need to obviously get RenderMonkey. As mentioned earlier, it is free. All you need to do is head over to www.ati.com/developer/RenderMonkey. And from here, you'll find all sorts of great information about RenderMonkey, but you'll also find that ever so important link, downloads.
That's right.
Just come over here to downloads, and from there you can see where you can grab the installer, documentation, any release notes, the SDK documentation if you're interested.
Right, because there is an SDK for it.
Yes, you can develop for it to go even further with your pipeline.
Kind of enhance RenderMonkey.
Exactly. So anyways, not only that, but there's a lot of great stuff that you can find here at the website. I mean, check this out.
It has some GDC video presentations.
Yeah,
very, very cool
that has a lot of really, really useful information. So I recommend that you guys head on over to the site, spend a few minutes.
Right.
Don't just grab the app and run. There's some really good information here. But once you get it, we're not going to tell you how to set it up because I'm sure everyone out there that's watching this video is quite skilled with a Windows application installation. So once it is set up, just run it, and this is what you're going to see.
Yep.
Very clean.
It
very familiar looking.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Like most IDEs available nowadays. This may look very similar to Visual Studio to you. You know, across the top we have our simple menu bar, and then from there we have a toolbar with all sorts of tools available, gigantic buttons.
Yes.
From there we have our Workspace editor, and then our Workspace itself. And between these two areas right here, we're going to spend a lot of time working. As a matter of fact, this is where we're going to spend 99.9% of our time developing shaders. From there, we have an output window. Again, most of you guys out there that are watching this video probably find this very familiar because most IDEs do have some sort of output window. So when you start compiling things or doing various tasks within the application, if the application needs to give any information back to you, this is exactly where it's done.
That's right.
So with that, what I'd like to do before I start talking about the layout, other than that simple intro, is go ahead and open up a shader.
Right, just so that the interface can start being populated.
Exactly. So let's come up here to File, Open, and you'll notice I'm opening a GL2
Right,
shader.
Go up one level.
Sure.
And notice this is in the examples folder inside of your application. And we have DirectX 9 shaders that we can run. We have OpenGL 2.0 shaders that we can run inside of the media folder. There's all sorts of textures and models, etc., that you can access. Absolutely.
And you know what? I highly recommend that after you guys get finished watching the handful of videos that we're putting together on creating shaders, that you spend a little time. Come in here and start digging through the various shaders that are available. Take a look at the effects. Take a look at the passes that they've got set up.
That's right.
Take a look at the different little programs, the Vertex and the Fragment programs. And see how they do things. That can be such an invaluable knowledge base.
That's right. Just looking through other people's code and understanding what they're doing. You know, spend the time to look through the code and find out what they're doing. You can learn a whole lot, not only techniques, but also from a technical standpoint. It's very interesting.
Exactly. So let's go ahead and pick on, I don't know, depth of field. Yeah, everybody's familiar with depth of field. And here it comes.
And you notice in the bottom, we have all sorts of information. It compiled all of the passes and everything.
And we have a preview window that we're now seeing in our workspace. And inside this preview window, you can see I can navigate around, very similar to the type of navigation we have available over in the application we've been writing.
Right. And another thing to point out with RenderMonkey is it's not just a place where you can make shaders. You can load models. You can load textures. Everything you need to be able to preview your shaders is available right for us.
So basically, you have an application right here, a full application. It's pretty much similar to our SDL box demo.
Very much.
All we got to do is load a cube in right now and we're done. But, excuse me, we do have all this available to us, and you're going to find that the preview window is, of course, very important as you're working.
Yes.
Now, you'll notice over here on the side, in what is known as the Workspace editor, it just came to life.
Yep, lots of stuff going on.
So many different things available over here. That's the really cool thing about how RenderMonkey works. It's really designed for two kinds of people. It's designed for the programmer, and it's designed for the artist, which is really nice. The programmer can come in here and create a shader from scratch. But he's not an artist, so he's not going to to know how to give it that perfect touch so that it's going to work just right in the application.
Right, he's going to throw in the necessary attributes so that the artist can then take that shader, tweak it the way he likes it, and then throw it into the game or whatever.
Exactly. In essence, he's going to create the engine of the shader, the heart of it, all the complicated math and things like that. But as Joel was just saying, he's going to be the guy that's going to make available the parameters necessary that an artist can come in and adjust to tweak the effect, if you will, to get exactly what the supervisor, the director, whoever is looking for.
Exactly.
So in this particular case, you'll notice that I've got a lot of variables that are available to me right here, and I can come in here and I can double click on these, and it's going to open up a dialog in a lot of these cases. And I can come in here and I can start tweaking different things. And look at this. In my preview window, I get real-time update of exactly what's happening with the effect itself, which is very handy. But right now, I'm kind of working in a programmer's perspective, because if I want to, I can quickly come down here and just simply start opening up code.
Right.
That's right. Of course, we have source code available to us. Obviously, that's
that we
important.
can directly modify.
That's right. And if I was an artist, though, let's say that I'm the programmer. I've completed the effect, and I'm going to pass it over to Joel, who happens to be my very talented artist. Then from his point of view, check this out. We can come over here to the Art tab. You'll notice I've lost a lot of the things I was looking at a second ago, including any way to get to code. Now I can come in here and I can just start working with various parameters that all have some sort of effect on the shader that we're looking at right now in the preview window, which is really, really cool.
Very, very cool.
So let's go ahead and jump back over here. One more thing to go along with that is we come up here to our toolbox area. You'll notice that I have what's known as the artist editor. If I bring this up, we're going to get a really nice layout over here of, again, all of the different parameters that I can manipulate to affect what I'm seeing in my preview.
It's kind of a niftier look at the art tab, if you will.
It is. So anyways, in this particular case, it's nothing but a bunch of sliders, and of course we have our base texture.
Which is being applied to the model.
Right, which isn't that exciting.
No.
So I guess in a little bit here we'll show some shaders that have color swatches and things like that. It'll look a little more interesting. So let's go ahead for just a second, Joel. I know what we can do. How about this? This will be cool. When we come in here, we have our workspace. What kinds of things do we see? I mean, we're looking at effects, right?
Right.
We're looking at passes.
Right.
So help make all that clear for our viewer.
All right. Well, if you look up here, we can start out with the effect workspace. We start out with a note here, and these notes can be added anywhere just to give, the programmer some notes on how...
Some comments.
Right, some comments. And then we can add variables. And if we right-click on the effect browser here, there's different things we can have. And again, a workspace doesn't have to just have one particular effect. It can have multiple effects. So we can add an effect group, which inside of that we can have, various effects, and we can switch between those effects as well. So right now we only have one type of effect. If we wanted to, we can have multiple ones, set that as the active one. The preview window would then hold that.
Want to go ahead and add another effect? How about
Sure. Let's add with an OpenGL effect. So I've just added a new effect here, and inside of here I can add more effects. Let me just add a textured bump, and just give it a second. Ooh. And you notice now we have in the preview window this bump, but at the same time, I could still go back to the depth of field, right-click on this, set it as the active effect, or just press F3. And if I come into here, check this out. It's now going back to the Radeon depth of field logo.
Right, which is really nice if you're wanting to work with multiple effects at one time.
That's right.
And that's another thing that those out there that are completely new to writing shaders and working with RenderMonkey, of course, may be a bit confused with right now. We're using the term shaders, we're using the term effects.
Right.
What's an effect?
Well, an effect is basically a combination of different shaders, if you will, or different passes. So as you can see in the depth of field, it's not just one shader that we have. As we showed before, we can come in here to a particular render pass. This little 3 squares here represent a pass.
And that render pass is really a shader.
It is a shader.
That's right.
It has 2 things in here, a vertex shader or program and a fragment shader or program.
Okay.
And we can come in here and see that it's doing a whole bunch of things. But I can come in here, disable this particular render pass, and this is what's actually rendering out this text here, so I don't want to disable that. But if I take out the blur, for example, that just took out one of the steps to getting this entire effect.
Right.
So these multiple shaders contribute to the final effect that you're seeing in the preview window. So if I, for example, disable the second blur, then it's slightly modifying. Actually, it didn't seem to make too much difference here, but it's just...
I'm wondering if that's because of over here, part of that we can't see. If we control and pan over.
Oh, right, probably.
So I'll hold control. There we go.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so go ahead and enable... not much, really.
Right.
Anyways, we're just playing with their stuff.
Playing, yeah.
But the idea is this. This one effect is comprised of multiple shaders.
Exactly. And they combine to form the final thing here that we see.
So how does that work back over in C++ in our applications? So we've got multiple shaders, and we want to apply this effect to an object.
We have to actually load in all of those shaders and apply them sequentially. Like in this case, in the render one, not to get too in-depth on this, but it's rendering this logo here. In the other ones, it's actually modifying what the first pass created. So it's modifying what was rendered. It's not actually re-rendering this particular 3D logo.
Okay.
So we'd actually have to render in 4 different passes inside of our code before we get the final look.
That's the key word I was looking for. So in our code, we're rendering multiple passes, each pass going through the different shader that's working on the previous one, and that's what's building up to our final effect.
Exactly.
Hence the word effect.
Right.
So hopefully that makes it very clear for everyone out there.
Definitely.
Which is cool, though, because it's not like we're going to go into RenderMonkey and write a shader. That's the only ability we have to apply to our object. We can do things far more complex than a simple shader.
Right. So if we come on down to here, just real quick here, you said we had color swatches in the side here. So I can bring up the artist editor again.
Yeah, look at that.
And inside of here, we have diffuse color, ambient color. And if I just start modifying this, you can see that it directly influences in real time the preview window and what we're seeing here. So I can modify the ambient color, the diffuse color, etc., etc.
That's right.
So let me see. Other than that, let me go back up to here. You'll notice that we can add an effect group, as I did a second ago. We can also add some sort of default effect. And it gives you a whole bunch of things.
Can I kind of jump in here just to add on what you were just saying? So basically what Joel's saying there is you'll notice that right here we have an effect, depth of field. But then Joel went in there and added his own thing because we opened up depth of field. And Joel put in a group in just to show you guys how we can go in and group effects together, which would make it a lot easier if you were managing 5, 6 different effects. This would be really, really nice. So let me go ahead and do this, Joel, if you don't mind. Do a new scene real quick. So now we'll come in here, check it out, completely empty. So if I wanted to, I could just say, look, we're just going to add an effect. We're going to work with only one effect. We're going to keep things simple. Now, what kind of effect do I want? DirectX or OpenGL? In our case, OpenGL, obviously. So we're going to come over here, and we'll just pick on the same one that you did a second ago, so a textured bump. So we'll pull in the effect, and you'll notice, look how simple it was to get a base to start working with for our own shader. So and now, there's our effect. Joel opens it up. And I wanted to do this because you'll notice how it significantly cleaned up my Workspace editor.
Yes, it did.
This will make it a little bit easier just to kind of walk through and explain the different things we're looking at. Big thing to understand here is while we have various variables available, look at this. One pass only. For each effect, we have to at least have one pass. That's right. And it's within that pass, here's where we find our shaders, the vertex program and the fragment program. Isn't that nice? It's putting them inside little tab things, just like over in Visual Studio and other IDEs. And you also have a drop-down so that we can easily jump between passes. So very clean. I didn't mean to jump in there, Joel.
That's all good.
As you're up here right-clicking and showing the difference between adding groups and adding just straight effects, I really wanted to take a second and explain kind of the convenience about grouping them together if you're working with multiple effects at one time.
So another thing I want to go ahead and show is, of course, we can add different cameras in here. We can add a pass. We can add variables into here. And these are the things you see over here, a color variable, an array, or if you will, a vector.
And they all have different icons to help quickly identify exactly what it is.
That's right. In this case, with just one point here, we obviously know it's just a one value.
And what's so cool about adding them there as opposed to, going into code and we just do, you make a float and whatever it is. What's nice about this is now we have variables that an artist can access with a dialogue and manipulate as opposed to having to go into code and find a particular line and manipulate the data there.
Exactly. And you'll notice this little green triangle type thing here.
Green? Yellow?
Yellow, excuse me. I'm colorblind. What can I say? If I modify, this means that it's an artist changeable value. So if I come over to art, these guys are going to remain. Notice they all have this yellow triangle.
That's right.
If I come over into here, turn this off.
Notice it was just right-click. You'll find that most of the stuff that you're going to do in RenderMonkey is right-click. So show them again in slow motion. Right-click. Artist variable. Okay. So turn it off now.
Yep. So now we can come in here, turn it off.
And you come over there to the art tab.
It's gone.
Aha.
So this just gives the programmer a way to hide variables, if you will, from the artist.
Precisely.
So if I come back here, I'll just turn this back on. So going back to here, we can add different variables in here, booleans, integers, floats, matrices, and some of these are defined strictly by the artist, as some of these are back here, or they have predefined things like the view matrix or the world matrix, etc., that we can add in here and use inside of our own code.
Exactly.
And then, of course, we have textures, as there's this texture here. If you have a normal map, you can add that texture in as well. You have models that you can create and put in here. In this
so
case,
easy. As a matter of fact, change it over to a cube.
Sure. Let me come over into model here.
Right.
And right-click on this, and I can change the model to, say, a car. And dink, there we have a car.
So now we can see what our shader looks like applied to a car.
Right. And then if I come over to here, notice that this one is referencing this particular model. So I can come into here just real quick, add a model in here, maybe add, I don't know, an elephant body. And now I've added a model in here, and I can change this pass to reference the elephant body. And now I have two models in here, but I'm only referencing the one in pass 0.
Exactly.
So other than that, of course, you can rename, cut, copy, paste, delete, etc., or you can generate fur.
Yeah, that's so cool.
That is fun. Other than that, let's see, navigating this view preview window here. Right now, we have it selected to overloaded camera mode, so we can, using the left mouse button and dragging, we can kind of rotate around our model.
Actually, with that, I'll just steal it away from you for a second. If you want to lock down to just specific moves, you can see we got a tumble right here with this guy. Then just by clicking that, now you can see that we're easily panning around.
Right.
This is going to allow us to easily dolly in and out. This right here is camera home, which is really nice, where if you end up getting yourself completely lost or whatever, you could just say, bing, camera home. Bing. That's really nice.
Right.
You know, this is the default mode right here, and this is real nice. It's a combination of both your panning and dollying, you know, by default, and tumbling. So by default, left mouse, and I'm in here tumbling. If I roll my mouse wheel or push it down and pull it back and forward.
So the middle mouse button.
Or middle mouse button. I'm dollying in and out, excuse me. And if I hold Control down on the keyboard and use the left mouse button, then I'm panning or tracking around.
Yeah.
So you kind of get a little bit of everything from right there, which is very convenient. Let's see, anything else? A couple more things about up here we can talk about real quick. You know, if we want to open up Workspace, so basically we're working on a workspace that contains a number of effects that could be grouped together or whatever. We save out our workspace. In other words, everything that we're putting in here, we're going to save out it's almost like the file for the whole thing. If we want to come in here and hide out our workspace editor, we can do that easily with that. If we want to hide out our output window, we can do that as well. The preview window, by default, it's on when you open up a workspace. We can, of course, turn it off, but a very important thing to keep in mind, when we get into working with code, which is going to come about real soon, I'll go ahead and open up some code. There, we feel all special. And we come in here and we start making some changes to our math or whatever it may be.
Right.
Obviously, compiling it's going to become really important. In compiling, you must have the preview window open, otherwise you're going to get an error down here in the output window that's going to say, hey, your preview window needs to be open.
Right.
And reading over ATI's documentation on RenderMonkey, it sounds like in the future, we're not going to have the preview window open, but for now with this version 1.6 you do. Okay, so anyways, thought you might be interested in that. Let's see, so we saw the artist editor, and now we come over to a series of compile buttons. Basically, are we going to compile the active shader, and we can just use F6 to do that.
Which is whatever is currently open in the shader editor.
Exactly. Are we going to compile all shaders in the active effect? So again, the effect can contain multiple passes, and each pass has its own
shaders.
That's right, has its own code. So are we going to compile all of those in the active effect? And are we going to compile everything in the workspace?
Right.
So depending on what you're doing, you know, one of these will be pertinent.
Right.
Okay. I mean, you don't always want to render or compile
everything in the workspace.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then that's pretty much it. Joel, you want to talk a little bit about the little paint thing here?
Yeah, if you wanted to get input from the mouse inside of your shaders, you can also, do that from this window here, which just toggles it on or off. And then if you want to create some sort of painting on models type shader, you can go ahead and utilize that.
So really, that's going to pretty much wrap all of this up. I mean, you've got a few little hotkeys that you can use over here as well. Like if you hit the A key, you'll get a little tripod axis in the center of the world. A, again, will toggle it off. The S key will give you frames per second and a triangle count and vertex count, which is kind of nice. S to toggle it back off. And if you need to show the bounding box, you can hit the B key as well. Again, handy things that, you know, if you need them for whatever reason, they're there.
And compiling, you can use that with F8.
That's right. Actually, it's F6, F7, F8, depending on what it is you're doing. So let's wrap it up with this, Joel. So let's go ahead and do a new scene. Again, guys, you want to come in here, just start playing. Come up, file, open, a bunch of different things, and there's some cool stuff in here, like let's pull in fire. Check this out. Here it comes. Just to show that you can also have things that are animated. Look at that.
Right, yeah, very nice.
As a matter of fact, as we near the end of these videos, we'll talk a little bit about animation. And
and how you can use time to drive your effects.
And again, take a look at this. So here's our workspace, and with the workspace, now they're being smart. They've got an effect group. Why? Because we have multiple effects that all are basically related in giving you this look right here. So this one and this one, we have the explosion, and then if we come up here and was to set this active, give it just a second. Now we got the fireball type effect, and then if we want flame, we can go ahead and set this guy to active. Give it a second, and there we go.
Very cool.
So all related in the fact that they're fire. Very nice stuff. Again, I highly recommend spending a little bit of time digging through some of these, even if you want to do some super simple stuff like coming in and saying, effect workspace, let's add a default effect, OpenGL, give me something super simple that uses a texture, so just texture, no bump, no nothing. Now,
no shading even.
No shading, yeah, there's no lighting model here. What makes this tick? And then we can simply come in here and take a look at the vertex program. That doesn't take a lot. Fragment program. So now this is our pixel coloring. Well, the color is, that doesn't take a lot.
Right.
All right, so you can see how easy that is. And, of course, we have the texture. And that's another thing that's really handy as well, is it does include a texture preview window.
Exactly.
So you can come down here and take a look at it and get bigger one and all that good stuff. Blah, blah, blah. There's just a lot of stuff available. I thought I had an enlarged thing down here at once upon a time. Where'd it go?
Anyways, if you just click over here, just click on... Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It didn't work.
Oh, okay. Let me show you.
There it is, large preview.
That's what I was thinking.
That's what I was looking for.
Large preview right here.
And this can be handy as
well.
Very
handy, especially if they have small details and you're wondering why you have weird jaggies or something.
Precisely. So, to be honest with you, I think that was a pretty good introduction to the user interface. And now that we've seen
the tools you work with.
That's right. Now that we've seen this, in the next video, we're going to take a look at creating a very simple shader that does not take lighting into account at all, just a simple color, and then we're going to build on that.
Right.
We're going to revisit the Lambert algorithm, okay, the equation for it.
The simplified version of the Phong lighting model.
Okay.
Right.
And, which gives us basically a Lambert type effect. And then we're going to show you how to implement it inside of RenderMonkey.
That's right.
So with that, that's going to wrap up this video. Thanks, guys.